Musings from the tiny little studio on this tiny little Greek island. Uh, as you can see, I am painting a Greek Christmas cookie called kourabiedes, if you have lots of them, which you usually do. And it is a butter cookie. I'm going to get into the history of that, where it comes from, and a little bit later. But first, I came across some information which, it's funny because you learn things like Santa Claus, who Santa Claus was. I mean, not in real life, right? And you have these songs, about Old Saint Nick, and you're like, who the heck is Old Saint Nick? I mean, there's Santa Claus and Old Saint Nick, and how are the two the same person? But you just kind of accept it because you're a kid, right? And that's just it, right? And I came across this really cool article while I was looking for photo references for my courabie cookie painting, and thought I would give you guys the information. So I'm going to start with Saint Nick. Like, who the heck was Santa Claus in reality? Like, who was he? And here's an interesting little tidbit. So there was this guy born around 270 AD in Patara, which was a Greek colony in Asia Minor, today's Turkey. And he was a Christian, raised in a devout Christian family, and he became the Bishop of Myra, or Mira. I don't know exactly the pronunciation, Myra. And he was, known for his dedication to the Christian faith and acts of generosity. I mean, this guy was leaving coins and food and things like that for people in need, you know, which is pretty cool. His, known deeds, what we know about this guy was that he helped the poor. He was protecting the sailors because, let's be serious, like back in the day, sailors were it. And sailors were top because they were the connection to the outer world. And he would intervene and help out those who, were wrongly accused of whatever, right? I mean, he was just kind of like your really cool guy, somebody you would love to have in your community. Let's see. Okay, so he's most famous for providing dowries for these three poor girls, which saved them from becoming servants, slaves, servitude slash slaves, by secretly leaving bags of gold at their home, like a Christmas kind of thing, right? You wake up and boom, you've got presents. Well, today's presents are not bags of gold, unfortunately. But the gist is there, right? The roots are there. So the legend of gift giving and this generosity was inspired by this guy who later morphed because his fame spread across Europe, right? That, he just kind of morphed into Santa Claus. So we'll get to how from Saint Nick to Santa Claus, how that happened. So he died on December 6th, 343 A.D., which became his feast day, and it's highly celebrated here in Greece. All feast days are celebrated big time here in this country. My husband's name is Nikolaos in Greek, Nikos for short, and his name day is December 6th. So it's based on this guy. His relics were initially kept in Myra, but they were moved to Bari, Italy, to protect them from invaders, and they are still there. Okay, so his giving and his generosity and his propensity to help people, just kind of spread across Europe. And he was a protector of children. That's what he became known for, and sailors. So in the Netherlands and Belgium, he evolved into Sinterklaas. That's what they called him. And I'm sorry that I do not exactly know. I could Google it, but I'm not going to. Sinterklaas. So, which of course is in English, Santa Claus. I think that's really cool. So, it was an interesting little tidbit, because I guess I never knew that the original Sinterklaas, or Santa Claus, was in fact a Greek. Man. Wow. I mean, it just kind of blows me away. And it's funny because I'm half Greek, right? I've been living here forever, but people don't even really, I've never heard that story, right, of this guy, right? Of course, the Greeks that are in the Greek Orthodox Church, and they follow it and they understand who all these saints are and the name days that come up throughout the calendar, and there are many in Greece. They are much more familiar. But, like my husband, whose name is Nick, does not know the story. I'm going to ask him, though. Maybe he does. It's just never come up. It's just never come up. So now in Greece, we celebrate Santa Claus, but we still say Saint Nick, right? It's based on that, but I don't think people really even know today. I just found it fascinating. So that's one thing. The other thing that I learned about these cookies, right? I'm sorry, I'm looking at, this is from twinsdish.com, and it's a recipe, and they give you a little bit of history. These are Greek twins who have this blog, and and they're talking about the history of these kurabiedes, these butter cookies. And let's get into a little bit of the background, the history. So they say here that what many people don't know is that baking began in ancient Greece around 600 BC. That's when baking began. And it was this was also around the time of enclosed ovens. So the ovens that we use today, you just like turn the knob and it heats up and you can bake stuff and things like that, was invented by a Greek. So in 330 BC, there was a Greek named archestratos, something close to that. Archestratus, I guess would be the English pronunciation, who lived in Italy. Uh, uh, and he invented culinary arts when he wrote the first cookbook ever called Gastronomia. And it's where the term gastronomy comes from, because he wrote this book, Gastronomia, which has to do with your gastrointestinal, right? Food. This is so much fun. And so the birth of confections came 3 years later in 327 BC, when Alexander the Great was out tromping the world, right? Or the known world at the time. And he found sugar, and he found the value of sugar, and began to bring sugar cane to much of the known world at the time. So, Alexander the Great brought us sugar, which he got from somebody else, right? It's not like he invented the sugar. Hey, how are you? So he spread sugar to probably much of Europe and the Western world. Man, I hope we don't get cut off like yesterday. So Persia and Greece, right? I'm sure in Persia they were doing confections as well, since they had the sugar. Probably before the Greeks, but I don't know. I'm not a history buff. I'm an artist. So I really don't know these things. Okay, so anyways, getting back to the cookie that I am painting, which are one of my favorite cookies. It's called corabiedes, and it's actually what is known in the world today as the Mexican or Russian wedding cookies. Or, as many bloggers call them apparently, snowball cookies, because they look like a snowball. They're drenched with powdered sugar on top, and they look like a snowball. All right, so that's the history of corabiedes. They were created in ancient times, 320 some BC. Which is pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. So these cookies have been in the Greek tradition forever. I think it's pretty cool. How the two are connected, Saint Nick, or, Agos Nikolaos, back in the day, was probably eating these same cookies. And so it's, when we have a celebration here in Greece, we almost always have corabiedes, and that could be for weddings, Easter, Christmas, and any other kind of celebration that's going on. Corabiedes is one of the first cookies on the list. So I'm painting this curabie, just one of them, on a plate when I'm going to create all the powdered sugar. I've kind of got it set up, and it's a fun little painting. I'm enjoying it. I am also putting on the Christmas music, even though it's early November, because when I paint, I really like to have the entire feeling around what I'm painting. And one of the things that I will also do when I'm painting a landscape or a seascape, depending, I will also put on the sounds of the scene. Like if it's a seascape, I will put on water lapping against the rocks. We don't have crashing waves here in Greece, at least not in this area of the Aegean Sea. We have the little lapping, like if you're on a lake somewhere and the water is just kind of lapping up against some stones or rocks. And so I will put on those sounds, seagulls, and it just kind of pulls me even more into the feel of it, because it's not just your technique that you're painting, the cookie, it's the feeling behind the act of painting that somehow, in a very subtle, energetic way, just gets caught in to the canvas. And at least that's what I feel, right? Is that there's energy behind it. There's something that is going to connect how I feel while I'm painting this painting to someone else who will look at the painting. And even more so if it's in real life, right? I mean, here online we do the images, and I don't think it really comes across quite as much. Maybe it does, but I am certain that when I sell a painting and it gets into the hands of others, the people who have purchased the painting, they almost always write and say it's so much better in person. And you're like, why? Why is that? And I believe that it is the connection of the energy. It is somehow embedded in that canvas, in the actual real life canvas. So when you're holding it in your hands and looking at it, there's something of the sound of the sea. There's something of, the old time Christmas music. I don't do the new style stuff because these are ancient cookies. These are ancient cookies. I think that's so cool. And they are as Greek can be when you think about it, right? By the inventor of the cookbook, by the inventor of confections, right? Of desserts, along with Alexander the Great, who brought them into the Western world. Again, there's probably an alternative story on the Eastern side, Persian side. Let's not forget, right? Alexander the Great went into Persia and conquered Persia. So there were a lot of things that he picked up there and brought back into the Western world. Let's be serious. I don't know what they are exactly. Maybe you do. Maybe you know, and you can let me know. I am so curious about this. But as far as the Western world was concerned, the ancient Greek times, the record is that it came from this guy. It came from this guy. And what was his name again? Archestratus, Archestratus. He's the guy who wrote the first cookbook. He created the first cookbook called Gastronomia. In Greek, gastronomia. And I just think it's super cool. Just super cool. So anyways, you guys, I'm going to get back into painting and create more of my fluffy powdered sugar sprinkled on top, and move along with this painting. Hopefully finish it today. I will be back certainly on Monday. If I pop in over the weekend, great, right? It'll be so much fun. Otherwise, I will be here on Monday. Be inspired, be creative, be you. Have a beautiful, beautiful weekend, guys.